Hello to the players in this game. I don't know who you are because the names were not given on the score sheet, but that's okay. So hopefully in the future everyone will remember to put the names in. And the important thing is the content, and of course you'll know who you are as the game goes on. All right, so we start off with a four knights, and white played bishop to b5, the so-called Spanish four knights. The Spanish being another name for the Ruy Lopez, and this is kind of a cross between the Ruy and the four knights. So here, black has three main moves. There's bishop to b4, the symmetrical variation, the copycat variation, you might say. There's Rubinstein's knight to d4, and then there's the kind of weird-looking bishop to d6, which is actually quite a bit better than it might look. It looks like a really strange move because it blocks the d-pawn, which in turn blocks the bishop, which in turn blocks the rook. So it seems like you're creating this just terrible traffic jam for your pieces. But it'll actually kind of unsnarl itself. So first of all, if white plays bishop c6, then dc6 immediately fixes the problems. And if white does not take, then what we're going to do is we're going to go bouncing with the knight to e7, then go to g6, then play c6 and drop the bishop back, and then this pawn is able to move forward. And it all actually kind of works out pretty nicely. So it'll take a little time, but it can be done. All right, so in the game, black tried a fourth move, d6, and now I think white should play d4, and this will transpose to the Steinitz defense of the Ruy Lopez. And white has a bit of an advantage thanks to the extra space. And the extra space comes about because white has gotten both pawns, both center pawns, to the fourth rank, while black has one center pawn on his or her fourth rank, but the other pawn is not as active, right? And it also blocks the bishop on f8. That's the drawback to playing d6. So when you're white, especially in e4, e5 openings, your main strategic plan, your first strategic plan is to achieve d4. Doesn't mean you want to play it right here, but in general, you're trying to play it pretty early in the game, and that gives you more mobility for your pieces. All right, so as I said, I would play d4 here. Okay, white castled, black played bishop to d7, and again I would play d4. White took. I would prefer not to do that, at least not unless black kicked my bishop first. So I feel like I'm kind of giving up a half a tempo here by doing that. So I would again play d4. All right, so when takes, takes. And here I like rook to e1 because I think my queen's already got a job helping support d4 and being on that open file, or what's going to be an open file soon. So anyway, queen to e2 is played, bishop e7. And once again, I think the moment is right for d4. So again, we want to open up the board for our pieces, have some extra space, and go from there. So for instance, let's say take, bishop to d7. Maybe we go bishop to f4. And you can see white's got 3 units, 2 pieces and a pawn on his or her fourth rank, while black is really kind of, stuck in the back row here, the back 2 rows, with just the one knight and the pawn on his or her third rank. So white's got a real space advantage, and that's the reason to play d4. You get more mobility for your pieces. So in the game, white played d3, and here you can see there's no space advantage for white. In fact, the pawn structure is completely symmetrical. So black castled, and now we come to the next important phase, or the next important point that I want to make, which is a reminder about lineups and about good old LPDO. Loose pieces drop off. Loose pieces being primarily pieces that are unprotected. And in this position here, that is referring primarily to this poor knight on h4. And we've got this lineup with both the black queen and the black bishop ready to go and get the white knight. Just the black knight is in the way. But that should set off alarm bells, right? If I can move the knight someplace where it does some damage to the white position, then fantastic, right? So let's say I go knight takes e4. Yes, white can take the knight, but no big deal because now I can take the white knight, and I want a pawn, right? Because we both lost a knight, but I collected that free pawn on e4. And likewise, if white moves the knight away, no problem. I can move my knight away, or I can trade on c3, and black has a great position here and is just up a pawn for nothing. So black saw the potential for an attack, but wasn't thinking aggressively enough and brought the knight back to d7. Okay, so white jumps into f5, which is a great square for the knight, and understandably black played g6, but this is a little bit of a mistake. It's a subtle mistake. It's not like you're just losing material or anything like that, but it is a little bit of a mistake. And here's the big point. So when you push this pawn here, right, notice that all of black's pawns around the king are on light squares. And so what that in turn means is that black is going to have some weak dark squares. Now, what black piece is going to be the best defender of all those weak dark squares? Well, obviously it's going to be this bishop here. So what white should do now is get rid of it. Knight takes e7 check. Okay, black recaptures. And now let's invite ourselves into those weak dark squares. Bishop to h6. The rook moves away. And now that the rook is off the f-file, let's open the f-file and use our rooks. So f4. And now if black does nothing, we might push here, we might take. So both are promising in different ways. But f5 is probably what I would end up playing. Or I would just build up with rook f3 and rook a to f1 and then put the decision off. And let's say black takes, I'll recapture, and rook a to f1 is coming, and black is in a lot of trouble here. So that I think was the way to go. And for black, g6 was the right idea, but first bishop to f6, then g6, and then black doesn't have that problem. All right, so I hope you found that helpful. I will talk to you soon, I hope. Take care. Bye-bye.